The glass doors of the ER burst open. I saw him instantly, a Doberman puppy, black and tan coat stretched over ribs sharp enough to count. He staggered forward, tiny jaw clenched tight around the knot of a black garbage bag. Too big, too heavy. Yet with each step, he dragged it across the polished tile, leaving behind a sound that made every hair on my body rise. A long scrape. Broken. Relentless. And then, red drops. Scattered at first. Then a thin trail blooming across the white floor. Every head in the waiting room snapped toward the scene. A child's voice whispered, trembling, "Mom, is that blood?" My breath caught. Buddy, I would call him that later, hadn't just wandered into the hospital. He had brought something with him. Each step was a battle. Each breath is a fraying thread. But his eyes, deep, wet, unwavering, never wavered. He looked straight at us, as if he knew exactly where he needed to be. The guard shot up from his chair, the legs clattering against the wall. His voice was sharp, cutting. "Everyone back! I'll handle this dog." Buddy froze for half a heartbeat, on the edge of collapse. Then he lunged forward, fragile body thrown between the bag and the man. A growl tore from his throat. Low, raw, but sharp enough to slice the silence in half. The room went still. Someone whispered a prayer. A young man raised his phone with shaking hands, but no one dared move closer. Buddy trembled, chest heaving, legs slipping on tile that seemed too smooth to hold him. Still, he had his ground. Then, suddenly, he barked. Just once, hoarse, weak, but it landed in the air like a plea. His eyes found mine, and locked. The look crushed the air from my lungs. Not wild, not threatening. A cry for help as clear as words. The guard raised a hand, his voice firm. "Nurse Donovan, step back." "Let me take it outside." My voice cracked into a whisper. "Don't." I left the clipboard on the counter and felt my feet move, drawn forward by something deeper than thought. Buddy whimpered, the sound breaking apart inside his throat. He lifted one thin paw and placed it on the bag. Then he pushed it toward me. My chest seized, my knees buckled. I sank, fingertips brushing against slick plastic. The smell hit. Iron, sharp, unmistakable. Blood. I pressed lightly. Something inside gave way. Not trash, not scraps. A shape. A body. I recoiled, breath shattering like glass. Gasps rippled through the room. Someone cried out. The guard gripped his radio, eyes wide but still frozen. Buddy lowered his head, eyes glistening. He staggered closer, pressed his wet nose against my shoe. His whole body shook as though it might break apart, but his gaze never let go. He wasn't guarding the bag. He was giving it to me. My hand trembled as I reached again, this time pulling harder at the knot. Inside, something shifted. Fabric. Thin. Torn. Then, skin. Cold. Small. Fragile. A child's arm. My stomach lurched. My vision blurred. The room erupted, voices colliding. "Is someone in there?" "Dear God, it's a child." The guard's voice cracked through his radio. "Emergency, main lobby. Send doctors now." I couldn't move. My heart hammered against my bone, threatening to split me open. Buddy pressed in closer, his whole body convulsing. His eyes seared into mine, burning with a single message. "Now you know. Save it." My throat tightened. My fingers clawed at the knot, so tight it seemed sealed by malice itself. I pulled. Plastic stretched. The stench of iron flooded my chest. The guard shouted, "Don't open that bag here!" But I didn't hear him. Something deeper screamed louder. I yanked. The knot snapped loose, tearing a narrow opening. Hot air spilled out, dense, metallic. My hand slipped inside. Cloth, damp, torn, and then skin, human, warm enough to still be alive. My voice broke. My eyes blurred with tears. I looked at Buddy. He sagged, nearly collapsing, but his eyes still burned with fire. I whispered, barely more than breath, "Dear God, he dragged a child here." At that instant, the doors hissed open again. Paramedics rushed in. The whole room froze. And I knew, after tonight, this hospital would never be the same. If your heart clenched the way mine did when I touched that tiny arm, don't leave this story here. Subscribe and follow what comes next. Because Buddy's story has only just begun, and it will hold you until the very end. The automatic doors slammed open, hitting the wall with a force like a gunshot. Footsteps thundered across the floor. 2 paramedics rushed in, a gurney and heavy trauma kits in their arms. The air, already tight as a drawn bowstring, threatened to snap. "Clear the way!" one of them shouted, but no one moved. The entire waiting room had gone still, every pair of eyes locked on the black garbage bag sprawled across the tile, and the trembling Doberman puppy guarding it with his fragile frame. I was still on my knees, legs numb, fingers stung with the metallic stench of blood. My heart slammed so hard it felt like it might rip my chest apart. The guard whispered into his radio, voice shaking, "ER has a situation. Emergency Buddy." That was the name already forming in my head. Collapsed once, his small body folding as if it couldn't rise again. But somehow he pushed back up, wheezed a guttural sound, and fixed his eyes on mine. No doubt, he was urging me, "Hurry, don't waste another second." I swallowed hard. Instinct screamed. I had to open that bag. The first paramedic threw out an arm, scowling. "Don't touch it!" Biohazard. Wait for the doctor. But I didn't hear him. My hands were already clawing at the knot. The plastic cord cut cold into my skin, pulled tight as if meant to bury whatever lay inside forever. I yanked. Nothing. I gripped with both hands and pulled harder. The stench of blood surged, hot and suffocating. "Claire, stop!" the guard barked, voice cracking against the walls. I ignored him. The knot began to give. A sliver opened. I reached in. My fingertips brushed torn cloth, then skin, ice cold. My heart stopped. "Dear God." The words caught in my throat, half sob, half prayer. The second paramedic snapped open a pair of trauma shears. One sharp slice. Plastic tore wide, echoing through the lobby like the sound of truth being exposed. Inside, a boy, small, face smeared with blood and dirt, clothes shredded, soaked through, his body limp, folded like a broken doll. No one spoke, only the sound of ragged breathing. A woman in the corner choked on a sob. Someone whispered, trembling, "Oh my God." I lunged forward, hands shaking violently, searching for a pulse. My fingers pressed to his wrist. Nothing. I slid up to his neck, a beat, thin, fragile. But there. "He's alive!" My voice cracked, raw, almost a scream. The paramedics snapped into motion. One snapped on the monitor, the other fitted an oxygen mask, wires coiling around the boy's body. "Move him to trauma bay, now!" they barked. The gurney clattered across the floor, metal legs shrieking against tile. They lifted him swiftly and laid him down. The torn bag fell aside, bleeding red across the floor like the wound of the entire room. In that instant, Buddy collapsed completely. His body curled tight, shivering as if every ounce of strength had been spent. But his eyes, They still followed the gurney, still fought to stay open until the trauma doors slammed shut. I bent down, pressing my hand against his side. His ribs stabbed up like knives. His heartbeat was chaos. Too fast, too weak. "Buddy," I whispered, my voice breaking. "You did it." "But don't give up now." He panted hard, eyelids sagging, but the moment he heard the wheels rolling away, he flinched, tried to lift his head. His thin paws scraped at the tile, desperate to follow. I held him down gently, palm pressed against his chest. "Wait. Let me handle it. You've gone far enough." The trauma bay doors banged open again. Dr. Nathan Cole appeared, sweat darkening his white coat, hair plastered across his forehead. His eyes swept the scene, blood on the floor, the shredded bag, the puppy trembling beneath my hands, his face drained of color. "What in God's name is happening?" His voice was hoarse. I forced myself to my feet, legs unsteady. "The dog. He dragged the boy in." Cole froze. "A puppy? Dragged?" His words cut off. Then his jaw tightened. "Focus on the child first. Get him straight into trauma." The paramedics rushed, the gurney vanishing through the double doors. They slammed shut with a metallic thud, leaving the waiting room swallowed in silence. I looked down at Buddy. He had fallen still, breath ragged, but his eyes stayed open, locked on that door. He would not rest. Could not rest. Not until he knew that the boy was alive. And in that moment, I understood. This tiny life had bound itself to the child's with a thread no human hand could ever cut. The glass doors flew open again. This time it wasn't the pounding boots of paramedics, but two figures in Navy uniforms. Police. The room seemed to lock shut in that instant. Every sound dropped into silence. The first officer was solid, steady-faced. Officer Mark Rivera. Behind him, younger, sharper around the edges, was Officer Tyler Grant. Rivera's eyes swept the lobby with practiced precision, scanning every corner until they stopped on me, kneeling beside Buddy. "This is it?" His voice was calm, pointing toward the dog. The guard nodded, voice still unsteady. "The dog dragged the bag in. There was blood. Dangerous, dangerous." The word struck me like a blade. Buddy lay curled at my feet, too weak to lift his head, ribs poking through dusted fur, and they called him dangerous. I looked at his fragile body, the jutting bones, the dirt-streaked coat, and wondered, who gave anyone the right to reduce a life to a label? Rivera stepped closer, crouching to study the torn bag and the streaks of blood. "What did it drag in?" he asked, voice steady as steel. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to hold. "A child. Critical condition. Without him, that boy would have died out there." Grant let out a dry laugh, sharp with disbelief. "A puppy dragged a kid in here? Sounds like a ghost story for children." My chest tightened like a fist. My hands curled so tight, my nails bit skin. "I touched him," I said, my eyes drilling into Grant. "I felt it." The dog knew where to come. He knew where help was. Buddy whimpered, eyes half closed yet still fixed on the trauma bay doors where the boy was being wheeled inside. Those eyes, haunted, determined, hit me straight in the gut. They weren't lost. They weren't confused. They carried intent. Rivera's brow furrowed, no trace of mockery. His face hardened as he turned to the guard. "Call animal control. The animals are connected to the incident. We need it separated immediately." A chill cut through my chest. It felt clinical, like a cold procedure. Labels, protocols, evidence, and in the middle of it, a trembling life. I couldn't let it happen. I shot to my feet, planting myself between Buddy and them as if my body alone could block the space. "No," I said, louder than I meant, my voice breaking but firm. "You don't understand. He's not evidence. He's a witness." Grant folded his arms, eyes dripping with scorn. "A witness?" "It's a dog, ma'am." His tone was flat, as if ending a bad joke. I stared straight back, unblinking. "Without him, you'd be looking at a dead child outside right now. Do you dare deny that?" Each word came sharp, like a knife point. Grant faltered, his smirk dimming before he turned away, searching for some excuse to cover the doubt flickering through him. But I saw it, his unease. Some truths are too heavy to shrug off with arrogance. Rivera's composure never cracked, but his tone hardened. "Ma'am, I understand you're emotional, but procedure is procedure. The boy is the victim, the animal. We need to take it in as evidence." The words "take it in" pierced Buddy like a needle. He recoiled, shuddering, eyes darting wildly toward the trauma bay. I pressed my hand to his back, my palm trembling. "No one's taking you," I whispered, plea leaking through my lips. The air grew so thick that every murmur from patients and staff seemed to slice through it. Families clasped hands tighter, watching me as if waiting to see if I'd break. And I knew, if I stayed silent, Buddy would be gone. If Buddy left, half the story, half the living proof, would vanish with the blood on the floor. I drew a breath so deep it burned. My voice rose, steadier now. "You want procedure?" "Write it down." This Doberman puppy dragged a dying child into the ER, nearly collapsing in the process. I'll sign the report as a witness. I'll take responsibility for every word. Grant gave a bitter laugh, dismissive. "You're turning this into theater," I snapped, turning on him, fire in my eyes. "No, you are. When you treat life, human or animal, like trash to be hauled away. He came to us. He chose us. Who has the right to take that away?" The room fell silent, heavy as stone. Rivera stood still, torn between protocol and the undeniable reality in front of him. The guard's hand rested on the catch pole, but he hadn't moved. For one breathless moment, everyone simply froze. Buddy scraped the tile weakly with his front paws, claws leaving faint marks on the polished floor. A single bark burst out, hoarse, frail, but defiant. "I'm not done. I won't give up." I whispered, prayer, command, or both, I didn't know. "God, if they take him away, we'll lose half the truth." And in that moment, I knew. This was no longer a fight between procedure and compassion. It was a fight to protect a silent witness, no matter the cost. The trauma bay doors swung open. Cold white light spilled out, washing across the pale face of Dr. Nathan Cole. His gloves were smeared with blood, his eyes etched with strain after hours locked in battle inside the ER. I shot up on instinct, my heart dropping out of my chest. "The boy, how is he?" My voice cracked, raw and jagged. Cole lifted his gaze, meeting mine. Then his eyes dropped to Buddy. The Doberman puppy collapsed at my feet, breath shallow, body trembling. His words came slowly, each one dropping heavy as stone. "For now, he's made it through. The heart is weak, but it's beating. However..." I froze. That single word cut like a knife. Cole lowered his voice, but the whole lobby still heard. "This isn't just an accident. The injuries on his body, they go back days, maybe weeks." A wave of silence swept the room. My chest tightened to the point of breaking. "What are you saying, doctor?" My voice quivered. Cole ripped off his gloves and tossed them into the bin. He leaned against the counter, voice hoarse but precise. His arms, his legs, bruises. Some fresh dark purple, others faded, nearly healed, and his wrists, rope marks. He was tied up. The words tore the air apart. A woman clutching her child gasped, "Oh my God." Whispers, sobs, and the scrape of chairs filled the room. Grant turned sharply to Rivera, lips curling into a smirk. "Well, that changes everything. Not just a stray dog dragging in garbage anymore." My stomach dropped, the cold flooding my veins. Images burned into my mind, the blood trail from the doors, Buddy trembling, his pleading eyes fixed on me. Now it all formed one horrific picture, and Buddy was the only living link. Rivera's face hardened. He pulled his radio, voice low and solid. 312 to dispatch. Possible child abduction case, victim in trauma bay. Alive but critical. Requesting immediate investigative response. Each word struck like a hammer. No one dared breathe. I looked down at Buddy. He was too weak, barely lifting his head, but his eyes stayed wide, locked on the trauma bay doors. He knew. Without a doubt, he knew. Cole suddenly knelt beside me, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "Claire, this dog. He has rope burns around his neck, same as the marks on the boy's wrists." I froze. My fingers shook as they brushed the ragged fur around Buddy's throat. There it was, a raw, bald ring, red and swollen. "Oh, God." The words caught, thick in my throat. Grant stepped in, voice sharp and certain. "Then it's clear." The animal was held with him, might even belong to whoever did this. I spun on him, fire in my eyes. Or he escaped and came back to drag that boy out. The lobby sank into suffocating silence. Faces turned to me, then to Buddy, then back to the trauma bay doors. Every breath seemed strung on a single thread. Rivera closed his radio, eyes unreadable. He didn't rule. Not yet. But the tension carved deep lines into his face. Cole stood, his voice heavy, cutting through the stillness. "Either way, this is no longer just a medical emergency. This is evidence of a crime." Buddy whimpered, the sound faint, fragile, but piercing. It wasn't a cry of pain. It was testimony. I saw. I was there. I pressed my hand against his back, feeling his frantic heartbeat beneath fragile skin. I bent close and whispered, "I know, Buddy. I believe you." His eyes lifted to mine, glossy, trembling, yet lit with fire. And in that moment, I understood everything had shifted. It was no longer just a fight for a child's life. It was a fight to drag the darkness itself into the light. A darkness Buddy had carried here, laying it at our feet. I had just wiped the blood from my hands when Dr. Nathan Cole returned, carrying a clear plastic evidence bag. Inside was something small, warped, frayed. He set it down on the counter, voice hoarse. "When we cut the boy's shirt away, this fell out." I leaned closer. A scrap of plastic, not a toy. A broken piece of a dog collar tag. The edge chewed, corners worn, a few letters still etched. C-O-7. The only characters left. The blood in my veins ran cold. My eyes dropped instantly to Buddy. Around his scrawny neck, through the ragged fur, a raw ring of skin showed. He had worn this collar. I whispered, "Oh, God, Buddy." Grant leaned in, narrowing his eyes. "His collar?" Then it's obvious. He belonged to whoever held the boy. I shot back, my voice low, steady. Or he was locked up with him. And he got out first. then came back. Rivera turned the tag under the light, face tightening, saying nothing. Only a single nod, sharp as a verdict. Cole's tone was grave. Either way, this isn't store-bought. It's custom-printed. We can trace it. The air in the ER thickened. The room had gone utterly silent, as if the hospital itself was listening to the secret bleeding from that scrap of plastic. Buddy stirred, lifting his head a fraction. He whimpered, eyes fixed on the bag. He recognized it. Rivera raised his radio. "Send the code to dispatch. Track down if CO7 was ever registered. Priority 1, Grant gave a dry chuckle. Now we're treating a mangy dog like evidence." Strange world. My fists clenched. The boy in that room is real. The blood on this floor is real. And it was Buddy who dragged it all to us. What part of that is strange to you? Grant fell silent. For the first time, he didn't argue. Minutes later, Rivera's radio crackled alive. A male voice, clipped and decisive. CO7 matches a batch of collars ordered by a kennel near the Blue Ridge foothills. No license. Neighbors reported screaming and stench. Recently shipped multiple guard dogs. My heart lurched. A kennel. Blue Ridge, just over an hour's drive. Rivera glanced at me, then down at Buddy. The puppy trembled, as if he too understood. He lifted his head, straining toward the trauma bay doors, then back to the bag. He was pointing the way. Cole muttered, almost to himself, "It might not just be one child. If that place is holding dogs illegally, we don't know how many more victims there are." A chill swept down my spine. Not just this boy. There could be more lives. I knelt beside Buddy, running my hand down his sharp, bony back. "You brought the truth here. Don't give up now. We'll carry it forward." He pressed his damp nose into my palm, eyes glistening, as if confirming. Rivera turned away, voice clipped with resolve. "I'll file the report. First thing tomorrow, Detective Whitaker and the team move in. That kennel gets shut down." Grant muttered something under his breath, but didn't dare raise it. I looked back at Buddy. He was nearly spent, his body too weak to move, yet his eyes still burned, tethered by an invisible thread that ran from him to the boy, and to the darkness waiting in the Blue Ridge. In that moment, I understood. Buddy wasn't just the dog who dragged a blood-soaked bag into a hospital. He was the key. The bridge to a secret far more horrifying than any of us had imagined. The monitor inside the trauma bay beeped erratically. Through the glass window, I saw the boy's tiny body swallowed in tubes and IV lines. My chest tightened, still too fragile. Then, metal clinked behind me. I turned. The guard was pulling a catch pole from the closet. The scrape of steel made my skin crawl. "What are you doing?" I snapped. Grant stepped forward, voice firm, unwavering. "Animal control is on the way. This dog is evidence, possibly dangerous. It needs to be separated now." Buddy lifted his head, eyes cloudy from exhaustion but lit with worry. He looked at the trauma bay doors, then back at me. A weak whimper slipped from his throat. I moved fast, blocking the guard. "No!" "He hasn't hurt anyone. He saved that boy." Grant narrowed his eyes. "You're letting emotions run you." "Ma'am, this isn't your pet. It's evidence. Evidence." The word hit me like a slap. I lowered my voice, each syllable sharpened. Evidence doesn't drag a dying child across half the city for help. Evidence doesn't whimper when his heartbeat falters. Evidence doesn't look at me like a living witness. Rivera stood silent, eyes flickering. He seemed to understand, but protocol still bound him. Just then, the glass doors slid open. A woman strode in. Plain clothes, compact build, eyes sharp as steel. Detective Karen Whitaker. The air shifted instantly. "Update," she ordered, voice clipped. Rivera reported. Victim is a boy, 6 or 7. Signs of captivity. This dog dragged him in. Whitaker stopped in front of Buddy, studying him. Doberman. Young, but rope burns on the neck. You're holding him? Grant jumped in quickly. Yes, detective. Waiting for animal control. She turned to me. Nurse Donovan. Your assessment? I drew a deep breath. I think he isn't evidence. He's a link. He knows what happened. And he won't leave that boy. Whitaker looked at me, then down at Buddy. A long second passed. Then she spoke, voice low but unyielding. Don't touch him. Not tonight. Grant's jaw dropped. But detective, Whitaker cut him off. We need this dog alive to find the rest. Anyone who lays a hand on him answers to me. The lobby froze in silence. Buddy sagged, drained, but I saw his ears twitch. He understood. I knelt beside him, whispering, You hear that, Buddy? No one's taking you anywhere. At that moment, the monitor inside the trauma bay shrieked, beep, beep, beep. Faster, frantic. The boy's heart is in chaos. Buddy jolted, trying to stand, though his legs shook violently. He scratched at the tile, claws dragging toward the glass. His eyes never left the boy. My heart lurched with his. I saw it clearly. Every breath the child took was tethered to Buddy's. 2 lives bound by an invisible thread. Grant shook his head, muttering, This is insane. I answered, my voice firmer than ever. No, this is the truth. And if you want to know why that boy is still alive, start by looking at the dog lying right here at my feet. The beeping on the monitor inside the trauma bay steadied. The boy's heart found its rhythm again. I let out a breath so long and trembling it felt like my whole body released with it. That night stretched like a lifetime. Dr. Cole stepped out, sweat still clinging to his forehead. He gave me a slight nod. He's stable. Heart's holding. If we're lucky, by morning he'll respond. I looked down at Buddy. He was nearly gone, his head resting on my shoe. I whispered, You hear that, Buddy? The boy's still here. And as if answering, his eyelids flickered. An hour later, near the end of the night shift, the unthinkable happened. I was adjusting an IV line when I saw it. A tiny hand moved. Barely. But enough. I almost dropped the tray in my hands. Dr. Cole, he's responding. We rushed to his side. His eyelids trembled, slowly parting to reveal cloudy, frightened eyes. Then they latched onto the first thing in sight. Me. It's okay, I whispered. You're safe now. You're in the hospital. Tears burned hot as I watched his cracked lips try to form a word. No sound came, but I understood. One word. Dog. I swallowed hard. I gripped his fragile hand and promised, He's right here. He's not going anywhere. I ran back to the lobby where Buddy still lay. Dropping to my knees, I cradled his frail body. He's awake, Buddy. He's calling for you. Buddy's eyes opened. Exhausted, but he forced his head up, gaze locked on the glass doors. I asked Cole for permission, then gently pushed the trauma bay doors open. Rivera hesitated. Grant scowled, but Detective Whitaker raised her hand. Let the dog in. The boy needs him. I guided Buddy forward. He dragged his paws, claws clicking faintly against the tile, every step a struggle. When he reached the bed, he dropped his head onto the boy's hand, and like a miracle, that tiny hand curled around his ear. The room froze. The boy's lips moved again. This time, I heard it. Buddy. My throat closed. He had just given him a name. Or maybe reminded him of the name he'd already known. Either way, he was Buddy now. Dr. Cole tore his eyes from the monitor. shaking his head in disbelief. Rivera exhaled, voice raspy. Maybe we need to rethink the word evidence. Grant said nothing. He turned away. Detective Whitaker stepped forward, voice firm, cold, resolute. From this moment, this dog is a witness. He's part of the case, and he will be protected. I held the boy's small hand in mine, resting my other hand on Buddy's back. 2 fragile lives, 1 child, 1 dog, bound together in a moment nothing could sever. I knew the road ahead was steeped in shadow. The abduction, the kennel in Blue Ridge, whoever was behind it, all of it had only just begun. But here, in this small hospital room, we had stolen back 2 lives from death's grip. I bent close to Buddy's ear, whispering, "You're not a stray anymore. You're his hero, and our witness." He let out a long sigh, eyes closing, not in despair this time, in peace. I looked out through the glass doors. The lobby was empty now, but I knew outside, the city was already stirring with the story. A starving puppy had dragged a terrible secret into the night and forced us all to face it,